although pursuing a big goal is important, it's not as important as the person you become in the pursuit of that goal, because you yourself have to transform. So I think where we fail is we make our short-term goals too big and our long-term goals too small. So the worst thing for me is to actually fulfill a small goal in my life and say I'm done. And then you look back and you're like, how do I want to measure my life? Was that it? That's it, right? So I know that it's relatively impossible, I think, practically impossible, to teach or reach 1 billion people. That's 1 in 8 people at the current rate of population right now. And so I think I'm okay with not reaching that goal, but I want to continue to frame my thinking and to challenge myself. What else can we do? How can we reach more people?
So guys, it's super honor to have Chris on the show. Chris, welcome to the Who You Know Show, my friend.
Thank you, Trevor. Thanks for having me. What's up, Dallas?
Yeah, let's go. Hey, so real quick, I'd love to know more about your mission. Okay, you've got an audacious goal, man. 1 billion people. I'd love to know more about that mission. Why did you have? What's the why behind it, and what inspired you on that journey?
Thanks for asking that question. I'm going to take the story back to a conversation I had with my wife. It's the point in which I'm running my production company, and she keeps telling me, give me a couple of more really good years. We're in that sweet spot of running our company where we want to build up that nest egg. I think I'm in my mid-40s right now, and we're having a meeting with my financial planner, and his name is John. And I said, and my wife, Jessie, she goes to the bathroom. I said, John, hey, can you do me a favor? I'm trying to figure out when I could reasonably retire from work. And he's like, okay, let me just look up your numbers here. Of course, he's got a head for numbers. He's looking up all the spreadsheet. He smiles to me. I'm like, oh, am I in trouble? He goes, no. In fact, you could have retired years ago. The way that you spend and how much you have saved, you don't need to work anymore. So I'm like, this is weird. My wife is telling me a very different story right now. So she comes back into the conference room. I said, babe, you can't believe this. John says we don't need to work anymore. And she goes, I know. I'm like, what do you mean you know? You've been telling me I need a couple more years, and I've been grinding at this game since I was 22 years old. So I've been 20 plus years into the business, and it's a grind working with ad agencies. It's very brutal and demanding clients and hard deadlines. But then I started to think about my life. Like, I think for the most part, we work to provide comfort, safety, and shelter for the ones that we care about, not only for our immediate family, but for our parents, maybe our siblings, or to be able to help out a friend in a time of need. I was already there, so I had to kind of think about what I want to do with the rest of my life. A couple years later, it just happens that I start this education company, and it becomes really clear to me that my higher purpose, my deeper passion is to teach, and to teach as many people as I can. I won't bore you with that story, but I needed to give this story, this idea, some kind of concrete, tangible component to it, which is, I don't want to just teach 1 million people. I think that's very doable in today's age with the reach of social media. I think I want to teach 1 billion people directly or indirectly to help them better their lives, to fulfill their higher calling for themselves as well.
I love that. A few years ago, I interviewed Dave Meltzer. Are you familiar with Dave?
I met him. Yep.
Oh, you met Dave? Yeah, he's amazing. Love him. And he had a similar goal which was 1 billion people to be happy and to be fulfilled. And I asked him, well, how do you think you're going to achieve that? Right? 1 billion people, that's a lot. So before I get to his answer, I'd like to hear yours. How do you think that you're going to hit that target of 1 billion people?
Yeah, I think I read about this in something that Jim Rohn wrote. And he said that although pursuing a big goal is important, it's not as important as the person you become in the pursuit of that goal, because you yourself have to transform. So I think where we fail is we make our short-term goals too big and our long-term goals too small. So the worst thing for me is to actually fulfill a small goal in my life and say, I'm done. And then you look back and you're like, how do I want to measure my life? Was that it? That's it, right? So I know that it's relatively impossible, I think, practically impossible to teach or reach 1 billion people. That's 1 in 8 people at the current rate of population right now. And so I think I'm okay with not reaching that goal. But I want to continue to frame my thinking and to challenge myself. What else can we do? How can we reach more people? And I think that kind of thinking has made me make different decisions in my life. And, I believe in this too. Like, you may not have the means to solve the problem that you have today, but eventually, if you stay focused and you stay persistent, the means will appear. So when I set this goal, I think in like 2016-ish, I didn't know how we could achieve this, but here we are in 2024, 7 years later, there are AI tools, and I'm thinking, wow, these tools, these robots can help us teach a lot more people. So we're building an army of TAs that are trained on the way that I think things need to be done so that we can help our students, our friends, our colleagues and peers on how to achieve their goal faster. So I think it now might be possible.
Well, I think that originally what you had said was like direct and indirectly impact a billion people. I think you've probably already done that. Okay. And let me explain how I think that you've already done that. So when I talked with Dave Meltzer and I asked him, he said, well, I want to teach 1,000 people. I want to impact directly 1,000 people who will then teach 1,000, who will then teach 1,000. 1,000 times 1,000 times 1,000 is a billion. And I was like, wow, okay, cool. So he'd even broken down the math. And so I think with that kind of methodology, you've already done it. Right?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean,
you don't think so?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Because I may have taught 1,000 people, but those 1,000 people have not taught 1,000 people. Because to teach 1,000 people is not an easy thing. So Meltzer is talking about like reaching global influencers, captains of industry, authors, those kinds of people, subject matter experts. And I can see how that might happen, especially if you're talking and impacting a university professor who in their lifetime are going to go through at least 1,000 students, right? But the kinds of people I'm talking about are one person running a shop somewhere, someone who is running a small community of 25 people. So it's going to take a while, and it's okay for me to take the rest of my life to be able to get there. And I'm good with that.
I love it. Okay. So let's dive into that AI that you were just talking about, right? That was actually one of my questions with all the advancements of technology and everything that's going on. What are you seeing? Like, what do you see? What are you currently working on? And then what do you see in the next 5 years?
I think a lot of really smart people are pointing to the trends that we're seeing, and that the value of information is shrinking to zero, kind of a race to zero right now, because of the vastness of the internet and how much good information is out there today. Prior to AI even, there's so much that you can learn for very little money or even free. So it's not a question of is the information available, it's the question of what information should you consume and from whom. So those are the kinds of things we're thinking about. But what smart people say is give the information away for free, charge for the implementation because people need help implementing. Now, implementing requires you to get into the weeds with them, to give them critical feedback or to create custom plans for them. That is very labor intensive. My friend Jewel, who's a sales coach, went through someone's call. I think the call was like an hour and 20 minutes long, and spent hours dissecting their sales call and giving them detailed notes. That is not scalable because there's only one Jewel. And to do that, she has to spend 3 to 4, maybe even 6 hours working on giving someone feedback that only took them an hour and a half to do. So we think, is this possible? And so what we start to do is say, how can we evaluate a sales call based on principles that we believe in to be good for someone? And can we teach a robot to look for these things, to call out when rapport is being broken, when a follow-up question should have been asked, or when there was an assumption made by the seller for the buyer? And can we grade them on the criteria that we think would make for an excellent call and give detailed feedback to a person? And we've been working on this and we're very, very close. Is it as good as what Jewel provide? No, not even close. But at 70 to 80% of what she would do at 1/100th of the cost of time and energy and resources, maybe this is something that people will want. And so what we think is to build specialized robots who are trained on thinking very specific ways that mirror our own. Can we deploy that across the internet? And if you've ever been on a sales call before, especially if you're a solo practitioner or you run a very small team, who do you go for help? You bomb a call, you lose a bid, and you are beating yourself up. I don't know if you've ever been there, but I have lost many jobs when I was much younger, thinking there must be something wrong with me. Why don't I know what to say or do? And I don't even know what the rules of the game are. So if you were to get feedback at that critical moment, I think we can ease the suffering and pain that a lot of people are going to feel. That's just one example.
Wow, that's huge. Now, are we talking about like an AI avatar making calls? Making calls? Or are you talking about giving that real-time feedback?
Not even that. So we want to do the MVP, the minimum viable product, right? So let's say you got off a call and it's on Zoom, so we know it's recorded. You can give it the transcript or the audio file. It will listen to it. It'll know who you are, who your prospect is. It's going to analyze the call for you and say, okay, on you asking deep follow-up questions, in you saying neutral and objective, in you saying less and asking more, here's your grade, C minus, B plus, and here's why. Here are moments in which you broke rapport, and here are things that you can improve upon. So it's kind of like a sales coach and trainer after the fact.
I love that. I'm looking at another use case. I want that for this podcast. How cool would that be? To like grade like how as a host, how well I did as a host. Like, was I interrupting? Did I cut them off? Like different things. Have different metrics to go at the end of the interview. Like, hey, that was great, or this episode's gonna suck because of X, Y, and Z. Right?
Yeah. Or here's
That'd be
where the
cool use
conversation
case.
got really valuable. Here's
Right.
where there was an emotional resonance and a profound story, so that you kind of know how to mine for this. And here's what you asked that got the person to say this, and areas for you to improve.
Man, there's so many use cases for all this technology nowadays. It's just incredible. I want to maybe switch gears just a little bit here, because I know one of the things that you talk a lot about, and for my audience specifically, I have an audience of job seekers who got let go from corporate America. You talk about valuing yourself, and this is something I wanted to make sure we talk about because it's one of your core messages. And can you share some practical steps or mindset shifts that individuals can adopt to start valuing themselves more effectively? And especially for someone that maybe, if you can think of, if they got let go from corporate America, the longer that search takes, their self-worth and value, they start, their confidence goes down, they start feeling worthless. So what would you say to someone like that to pick them back up?
Yeah, this is a meaty question that we would probably spend 4 hours talking about and not get to the bottom of it. So I'm going to do my best to trace the problem back to its root cause. Okay. So I'm going to take you back in a time machine. I want you to try to think in your mind at a point in your childhood where perhaps you felt really great about yourself, and the moment that things started to change. It's going to be probably somewhere between the ages of 3 and 9. And something very small processed through the child's mind will get catastrophized, and it will just magnify and aggrandize in your mind to be something really big. It could just be like one day you're building something really cool with your toy blocks, and your brother or sister or your mom or dad say something to you like, "Oh, can't you be tidy, Trevor? Like, why do you always have to build these useless things?" And they didn't mean too much by it, but it was just an emotional reaction. We're children and we're raised by imperfect people dealing with their own problems, raised by other imperfect people. So the cycle continues. So in your mind, you're like, well, I depend on this human for safety, for shelter, for food, for my basic survival needs. They can't be wrong, can they? It must be me that's wrong. Like, yes, I am a little messy and this is useless and I should help out a little bit more. So a lifetime of these small infractions creates a narrative in your mind that, you know what? I'm not that good. I'm not worthy. And then we add on top of this, something that seems like really good for parents to do can actually undermine your own self-development. And I just want to caveat everything I'm saying. I'm not a therapist. I've not been trained in psychology or sociology or anything like that. I'm a graphic designer. So everybody take what I say with a grain of salt. So what happens here is parents like to withhold praise for behavior that they want you to do. So they hold back praise as a means to control your behavior. So when you go home, let's just say you're in a typical Asian American household, what was the most important thing is to get good grades, to push yourself academically, to join the chess club, to take AP honors classes, right? So that you can get into a prestigious school. So when you come home, and you beat 99% of the students, but you're in kind of like a regular class, they don't say, great job, Trev. They say, hey, you should be pushing yourself harder, right? Or let's just say you do get 4.2 GPA that semester or that year, and they're like, great job. So now you have been trained to seek the attention and approval of the person that holds your financial, emotional, psychological, physiological safety in their hands. And they don't mean anything by this. Or they'll say, I'm really proud of you. But they say it from time to time. So we infer there are times when you're not proud of me. Parents also do this thing where they compare you to another sibling, a cousin, a coworker's child. They're like, oh, why can't you be as artistic? Or why can't you play the piano or the guitar like those people? And this stuff eats away at you. And a lifetime of this destroys your internal compass for who you are and your own self-worth. So now we enter into adulthood and we're looking for extrinsic, external guide points to tell us we're good or valuable. How do we know? Well, we know because we got a certain title at a certain prestigious company and we're making a certain salary and we're moving along some artificial timeline in our mind that we're moving faster than the competition, whoever they might be. And at some point, you lose your ability to judge for yourself if you're any good. Why do you think people are so scared to post on social media? Because someone else that you don't know or don't care about, and especially don't care about you, are going to tell you your self-worth. And so now you start a business and you're hanging on the client's every word. Oh, it's not worth it, Trevor. Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. Or your work, it was underwhelming. Oh my gosh, I didn't work as hard. I'll work more on this. I won't sleep tonight. It's not necessary for me. And so all these extrinsic indicators or benchmarks for your own well-being are being controlled by other people. And I say to people, why would you ever give someone as a person who has agency and autonomy, control over your emotional well-being? But we do it all the time. We volunteer. We're like, hey, you over there on Twitter or on LinkedIn, I know you don't know me and don't care about me, but what do you really think about me right now? And we ride that emotional roller coaster of the highs and the lows. When your post blows up and people are showering you with praise, the engagement is through the roof. You're, woo, my confidence is really high. And when the post falls flat or people are like, you're very insensitive, how could you say these things? Then your confidence goes really low. So my point of view on this is real confidence doesn't really move. So I suspect the people who ride this roller coaster of highs and lows, that your real confidence score is at the lowest of your low. It just artificially gets brought up because of the external factors. And I was talking to a friend and she was like, do you know where the word confidence or confident comes from? The Latin root word means confidere, with trust. So you don't trust yourself, your ability, your value, right? So like when somebody says, I don't have great confidence that this bridge is going to support our weight. It's not some esoteric thing. I don't trust that it was built well enough to hold us. And you might be right. I don't have confidence that you're going to pick me up at the airport. I don't have confidence that you're going to be faithful with me because I don't trust you because you've exhibited behaviors in the past that make me question that. So if we look at it, it's like, I'm not confident doing this logo. What are we saying? I don't trust my own ability to design this logo. That's the problem.
So, wow. Okay. So first of all, man, so much to unpack there. Oh my gosh. So when you were describing the person, like you, I told you backstage, a good mutual friend of ours, Fanny Dunnigan. I want to shout her out. Like I've done some interviews with her, and I've she's a great friend of mine. Like you described her to a T, and so I really hope she listens to this. I'm going to make sure she gets this episode. And one of the things that I remember that helped her to kind of get out of her shell a little bit was getting online, live streaming, kind of like, creating content and all of that. And it kind of helped her to, again, what you were talking about, getting the A's, always having to get the A, always having to get the accomplishment, right? That was like what she was going through when she was a child. So anyways, that's the first thing I wanted to point out is you made me think of her. The second thing, what you talked about was the highs and the lows, right? And somebody that's truly confident, I think you said, they don't move very much, right? Because they have more trust in themselves, right? So do you think that trust comes from, where do you think that trust comes from in yourself? Where do you think that comes from?
Okay. So there's lots of things I'm not confident at, but there are a couple of things I'm really confident at. And it comes from you doing something repeatedly over and over again, what Malcolm Gladwell calls the 10,000 hours of deliberate intentional practice at something. If you were, let's say you're a sports person, right? And let's say you're a really dumb, I'm sorry, I don't want to insult anybody. Like you're a champion dart thrower. You're just a champion. And you've thrown that dart 10,000 hours at a time, and you could do it with your eyes closed. The muscle memory is there. So when somebody's like, you want to play darts? You're like, yeah, because you feel like I practiced this enough times. And confidence really comes from repetition of doing really dull, dumb things over and over again so that you can rely on you've done the work, right? I'll give you an example. Public speaking used to be one of my biggest fears. And I would lose sleep. I'd have indigestion, like all the acid in my stomach. I would just be in the bathroom 10 minutes before, like really not good timing, right? So I had a rule, I can't eat. I would start to hyperventilate. I was breathing irregularly. And when I got up to speak, I was burping, and it was just like, it was all messed up. And my pits would be all sweaty, and it's not that normal stress. I mean, not that normal sweat, it's stress sweat. And that sweat does not smell good. So there I am, I'm feeling that, right? And so the reason why I felt that for a number of different reasons was because I hadn't done it before. Or I would do one talk, and then 9 months later, I would do another talk. And the time between those two were so far apart that I forgot how to use Keynote again. I'm like, oh, how do I typeset this? What are the master pages like again? What I realized is when the speaking opportunities increase in frequency, I got my reps in. So I was doing maybe one every 3 months, and then one every 2 months, and then 3 in a month. Actually, I would do 3 in a day. So you put in those reps, and then you're like, you know what? I know you all out there are new to me. This room is new to me, but this act of what I'm doing is not new to me. And so I started to see that I started to trust that I know how to do a talk, that I'm not going to put my foot in my mouth. I'm not going to freeze up on stage. And I'm going to, most importantly, give people more value than what they pay. That's the name of the game. I'm going to treat people well. I'm going to make sure the event organizer never, ever sees me as a difficult person and wants to book me again and again.
Man, I love that. Okay, so what I'm hearing is, for the audience listening, what you're saying and what I'm hearing is, I'm not sure exactly who said this, but discipline compounded daily equals transformation, right? It's just like when you work out, right? Discipline, you gotta have the discipline to do it. So for you to get out of your shell when you were terrified of public speaking, by the way, I completely resonate with that. That was me. I was absolutely terrified. I used to run and hide in the bathroom if I knew that the microphone was going to get turned around my way. I literally would go run and hide out in the bathroom. No joke. So that was me. But you had to have the discipline to get out of your shell, to just do it. Number one, compounded over time. Like you said, it first started out once every 9 months. Then it was, every, maybe 3 months, then every 2 months, then, 3 in a day. Right. So that frequency, right. Over time has created a monster, man. You're a beast. Right. So,
yes.
Now
can I ask you a question, Trevor?
Yeah, absolutely.
What is something you've done over and over again that you feel like, that expression, I know it like the back of my hand. Are there a couple of things that like you're like, yeah, I can do that. It could be do silly. It could be hacky sack, or it could be throwing cards, or whatever it is. Are there a couple of things? Can you tell me what they are?
Yeah, podcasting, doing this, right? I've done this since January of 2018. So almost 7 years now of podcasting, and so I've got my reps in, and I've done this enough times that I can do it in the it's like the back of my hand, right?
Right. And how many episodes in are you?
Oh man, that's such a good question. We are in the five to 600 range. Yeah, it started out originally was live streams, and those live streams, uh, I wasn't able to repurpose all of those to get them on the podcast. And the very first studio that we were using went out of business during COVID, and I ended up losing half the content. So probably 200 episodes are just gone. But yeah, I mean, probably in the 500 to 600 range now.
Okay.
Yep.
So what's really interesting is even if none of them were ever recorded, you aren't gone. You put in the reps yourself.
Absolutely.
Right? So I want to first quickly say shout out to the 76 people that are tuning live on LinkedIn. Our two mutual friends, Fanny and Rich Cardona, are there, and they're commenting. And she goes, "I just tuned in. My name's being mentioned." How weird is that? Her ears must have been burning. So okay,
Fanny,
shouting
I love
up.
you so much, Fanny. I love you so much. And Rich, shout out to you. Y'all are my favorite people. I swear. We got LinkedIn fam in the house.
Yes, we do. Okay, so there's a couple things that are happening here. If you can remember your level of trust in your ability to do a podcast, episode 1 to episode now, world of difference, right? And let's just play a game, okay? I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'm doing this to help our audience a little bit here. I'm sorry, I'm hijacking your own podcast.
Hey,
okay?
Feel free, my friend.
All right,
Go
the
ahead.
teacher in me wants to take over.
Let's go.
Okay. On a score of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, where like you feel like you're world class, one of a very few people who can do something, and one's like, I'm a total idiot imposter, somebody should kill me now. Okay. What was your level of trust, confidence in your podcasting ability, episode 1, from a scale of 1 to 10?
All right. So 1 was like I'm crushing it, and 10
No,
was
1 is you're dying. You're so bad at this.
Oh no,
you should
when
never
I
do it
first
again.
Started, it was definitely a 0. It wasn't even a 1. It was like I remember I had notes like this. I even had and I was
you were
shaking the whole time. Oh, I was shaking. It was completely off. It was, and that was one of the things that I knew I had to overcome my fear of public speaking. So I forced myself to do those types of things. But anyways, yes.
Okay. All right.
Very bad,
so
very
on a
bad.
scale of 1 to 10, you're not even on the scale. You're at a 0.
Yeah, kind of like 0. Yeah.
Okay.
And I remember the producer. He was like, "Guys, that show was bad." Like, he was like, "Y'all need to have a little more banter or something, because that was just so bad." And I was like, I didn't know what to do with my hands. You know?
Right. You're like, fair, I guess. Right. Okay. Next question for you is 600 episodes in. What's your level of confidence today?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's through the roof, man. Like, I just am who I am now. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like one of my gifts in the podcast is allowing for. I have a structure, but then I allow it to flow naturally, and I feel like the conversation will take the course that it's supposed to.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I feel like that's one of my gifts that a lot of hosts don't necessarily do. I've been on a lot of podcasts where I feel like I'm almost being interrogated.
Yeah.
Rather than like a conversation. So anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So what number would you give yourself today?
Today I'd give myself 8.9.
Love it. Just shy of 9. I'm going to round up because it's so close.
Always
I like
room
that.
for improvement. Okay.
Always room.
Absolutely.
Good for you. Okay. So you went from 0 to 9. And when we look at podcasting, we think, oh, it's just a thing. And it's not. There are a number of skills that you have to develop to be able to do a podcast, right? So let's think about what these skills that are kind of part of the chain of podcasting. What are the 2 or 3 things that you think you need to be able to do in order to be a good podcaster?
One of the things is guesting, right? If you are going to be an interview host, obviously the caliber of guests that you're able to bring on. And I would say making sure that the guests resonate with your audience, tailoring it to your audience to make sure that they're getting value out of it. And then, did you say 1? Did you say 2 things or 3?
2 or 3 things, yeah.
Okay.
The skills that you have to develop in order to be a good podcaster.
Yeah. So getting the right people, so guesting, making sure that you're able to tailor the interview to your audience so it resonates with them. And then making sure that you do good research and have good questions for that guest.
How do you feel about your ability to articulate and communicate clearly?
Well, that's important too.
Yeah, your comm skill is pretty important, I think.
Yeah, I think that's pretty important. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's
storytelling
interesting,
too. Storytelling,
storytelling.
being able to extract stories, because you do have a video audience, but then you also have an audio only audience. And so for that audio only audience, being able to have them visualize, because they're not able to see the video, right? So that being able to visualize, and you did a phenomenal job earlier, telling some stories. You're a master at that. So yeah, storytelling is another good one.
I'm going to just quickly review some of the skills, the durable skills you've had to develop in order to be a good podcaster. So you could be like, for example, you could say, I want to do sales, but to do sales, you have to learn a lot of different skills. And here you are. So you're talking about curating and being careful about selecting the right kinds of guests to be on your show. But I guess the unintended consequence of that, or the benefit of that, is you built up your network now. From a guy who's like based in Dallas, reaching out to people all over the country and perhaps all over the world, your network has grown tremendously. You are also a great translator because you understand how to take someone's ideas and tailor it for your audience. So you're speaking, even though you're speaking English, I think you're speaking multiple languages here, right? So you're able to do research, and this has made you smarter because you're more aware of what's going on and you become interested in people. You have improved your comms game, your ability to think and talk and respond in real time. And there's something that you probably didn't mention, but is an essential part of communications, which is your ability to listen. Super important. You're holding space for others because you want to honor them and their content. And then you love storytelling. So you've learned the art of storytelling by being a participant, but also as a student. And you're getting to learn from so many different sources. So these things done 600 times can translate to other areas in your life. So what we do when we want to increase our confidence is we look at the things we already have and we start to apply them as one of our core strengths in an adjacent application. So it might be public speaking, it might be teaching, it might be writing a book, or it might be as a host at a dinner party. And you'll be more confident not because you are leaning on a foundation of a skill that's been repeated many, many times. So I'm going to tell everybody who's listening right now, ask yourself this question. What is it that you've done over and over again that you feel like you can do it kind of without a lot of preparation? And then do the exact same thing, break the chain down and kind of figure this thing out. So a lot of this game of self-confidence is about learning who you are and what you're capable of. Now, I noticed one thing, and this is pretty typical. When I ask someone, what are you good at? They often will say things that have nothing to do with that. Like, oh, I'll listen to this person. I'll do these things. And they don't say, well, gosh darn it, I'm a pretty good communicator myself. I'm a really good listener. So it's still externalizing all the things that you've been able to acquire. We just you need to take a minute to kind of look at our own inventory of skills and honor that.
That is so good. I got to give you a mic drop for that, okay? Because let me tell you something. You even broke it down, right? Like I'm like, you asked me what's something you're good at that you've done a million times. I'm like, podcasting, this right here. And then you broke it down. And it's like, okay, well, that translates into this communication skills, right? Like and you're right. There are so many, like, relationship building, your network, all those things that you broke down. And yeah, you're absolutely right. So that's good. So you're teaching people to look for that thing that they've done a million times that they could do like the back of their hand, like riding a bicycle. They could just hop on and go, and dissect that to look for the skills that are within that, and how do those translate into other spaces? How could those skills translate into other places? Man, that's amazing. And then that way they could go in feeling confident, like, hey, I know this. I've done this. I can do this. Man, that's so good. That is so good. Okay. I got a question here because you talk a lot about key insights on pricing and negotiation. You've conducted a lot of workshops on sales, negotiations, and value-based pricing. I actually have my first online course launching in December. And so what do you think are some key insights, or maybe even common mistakes that people make when pricing their services? And how could I avoid that?
Okay, common pricing mistakes. All right. Okay. A lot of times people ask you this question, like, how much would it cost me to have a logo design? Or how much would it cost for you to represent me in court? And what we do is then we're like, the word cost means like really literally the expenses required to produce something. But the price is not the cost, because if everyone sold or priced something at their cost, they would exactly have zero profit. They wouldn't stay in business. And so we have to start thinking about the intangible value that we create beyond the cost. And this is where a lot of people get messed up. There's a line, and the line is price the customer and not the service or the product. And what does that mean? And it feels a little funny at first, and people give me a hard time over this because they don't understand how this works. You and I, we have some commonality, some common beliefs and values, but there's lots of things that we value very differently, right? Like I like baseball caps, and I'm starting to spend more and more money on caps that I like. And you might think that's the dumbest thing ever. Chris, why would you do that, right? So I'm going to ask you this question, Trevor. How much would you pay for a cap?
$25.
$25.
$25.
All right. What if it's like for a team or a band that you really love? Like, what's the maximum you would pay?
$25. Like,
I love that. See?
like,
I see.
You know,
And if I told you I
yeah.
paid $250 for this hat, you might think, you crazy, bro.
Yeah.
You just plain crazy. Why would anyone do that? But I noticed something. You have a fancy mic, or at least it looks fancy to me.
Yeah.
Is it fancy?
I mean, it's mid-grade. It's
mid-grade, okay.
Yeah.
But it's got the shock mount, it's got the everything, you know.
Yeah.
And someone else might say, that's stupid, just use your iPhone. Why would you do that? Or just use your earbuds. And we know if you're a little bit of an audiophile, you would think, that sounds tinny, it sounds hollow, and it doesn't sound good. And it's picking up all the weird scratches on your beard or whatever it is that it picks up. So we all have different sets of value. The mistake that people make in professional creative services, which is a bespoke service, it's not like you can just pull one off the shelf and say, here's your logo. Have a good day, sir and ma'am. You have to do something very custom. But each person that comes to you has a different set of values. So they might be like, let's buy a $200 hat, or let's buy a $25 hat. Or actually, I wouldn't even take it if you gave it to me for free. So we have different sets of value. So in the conversation with the prospect, you need to understand, is what you're doing valuable to that person? If it's not, you're wasting your time, because there's no amount of sales technique or pricing strategies or psychological manipulation anybody can teach you that they're going to feel good about giving you money. So one of the things I want to repeat inside my head, I want to share with you is this idea that I will only accept your money under the condition that you, the client or prospect, see a exponential return on your investment, and it will make you happy to give me this money to solve your problem. I think this in my mind, because if you come at it like, oh, Chris, why would I pay you for that? I'm like, you shouldn't. I'm not your person. I made a mistake today. I shouldn't have agreed to this meeting. And I thank you for your time. And I don't want to waste any more of it because I have to move on. Because what I do is valuable to a small group of people. And that's who I'm looking for. So if you think about this is kind of like more matchmaking than it is pitching and selling. We know, depending on your faith and your belief, that there's probably like one really right person for you. But if you try to be right with everybody, you're probably wrong for everyone. You know what I mean? I don't want to get there, but I'm making some innuendos, double entendres here, perhaps, right? So it's kind of what we're thinking about here. So when we look at clients, there are 1,000 clients that are wrong for you and maybe 10 that are right for you. And our job is to be able to clearly articulate what it is that we do, the benefit and the impact on our social channels, in our offers, such that we attract the right kinds of buyers who are literally looking for what it is that we're doing. And if you just did that, you would increase your opportunities, you would probably increase your lifetime customer value, and you would decrease your stress and the friction in trying to sell to everyone. The problem is most creatives, most inexperienced entrepreneurs think, well, if I cast a wider net, there's bigger potential bringing clients in. So all kinds of wrong people are coming in, and then you're going to get kicked down below so many times, it's going to erode your confidence.
Oh,
right?
So you're going to start lowering your price.
You're going to lower it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to internalize the negative outcomes as something is wrong with me. Something's wrong with my offer. I don't know why. I'm like, maybe I'm charging too much. I'm not worth it. And you go through all these things. So your job is to build a wall, metaphorically speaking, so that it filters through the right kinds of people and keeps everyone else that's not right for you out. So we can be more transparent in our pricing, in our capacity. I can take on 10 clients who are looking to invest at a minimum $20,000 to help rebuild their personal branding or something like that. Just made that up. And that way, someone who doesn't have $20,000 is not going to call you, bottom line. So we need to start thinking about pricing differently. And we know this. The other mistake that people make is they equate value to time. And it's something that's been locked together, your hourly salary or wage, what you charge per hour. And I was reading in Ron Baker's book, Implementing Value Pricing, and he goes, the acre was, an acre is measured by how much like an ox could plow in a day. It was based on labor. It's not something like mathematically this makes sense, it's like that's how much land an ox could plow in one day. So this is part of our culture. But what we realize is whenever we need a solution, whoever can give it to us faster is worth more. Give you many examples here. I order something online. I'm checking my messages like, why isn't it here already? And I know at a certain point, especially if it's really critical for me, receiving it earlier is better. If you need a kidney replacement, earlier, sooner is better. If you want a package, if you have a destination, you will pay for an express pass so that you can move in the express lane. Quicker is better. When your plumbing explodes, when there's a leak in the roof, quicker is better. In most cases, if the quality of the product and service is the same, getting it sooner or faster creates or commands a premium. So this is the opposite of what we think. So we think if I take longer, I would charge more. But if I give you a result faster, I should charge more. So those are the two biggest problems that we have. We don't price the customer, and we're equating value with time spent producing something.
That is so good. All right, a lot to unpack in there. But what I heard was, you were talking about casting the wide net versus, the saying that the riches are in the niches. So being very, very tailored to your message and what you're trying to convey so that you can attract your target client or prospect. Can I tell you a little bit more about the course that I'm designing? And then it's a very specific problem that I solve inside of this course. So I'm in financial services, and basically in our industry, it's very highly regulated, and it's hard for financial professionals and insurance professionals to, get online and promote their services and market, right? Because of all of the regulations and rules. And so I figured out how to do compliance-friendly marketing, using actually podcasting as a form to do this. And so I'm super excited about this because I get to teach it now finally. And I know that this is going to help the client ultimately get an ROI. So it's going to help them because they're going to be able to get online and market their services and promote and market. So definitely it's a high value because whatever they pay for this course, they're going to make, if they implement, right? If they implement and take action, they're going to make a huge ROI off of it. So that's what the course is about. And also what I heard too, which you were saying was almost like the more they pay, the more they pay attention, right? Like if somebody pays 20 grand for a course or whatever it is, they're probably going to implement, right? Which means they're going to get the result, which means they're going to get the ROI, which means you made a transformation, you made an impact. But if I were to charge, $50 for the course, right? They're not going to respect it at the same level, right? Okay. All right. So I just wanted to make sure I was hearing you correctly and kind of unpacking that. I love what you're talking about there. Okay. I want to dive into your YouTube channel. Can we talk about that? Okay. So you've got a massive YouTube channel. Shout out to everybody that's tuning in over there on the channel. What strategies do you use to create content that resonates with such a large audience? Because we were just talking about the riches are in the niches and stuff like that. I mean, with your audience, it's a large audience. How do you create content that resonates? And what advice would you give to aspiring content creators who are maybe just getting started? They're just now starting a channel, and they want to grow this thing and get it to a point where you're at.
Thank you for asking me that question, Trevor. So I want to caution everyone to not do this. If you look at where the big channels are and you kind of study them, you're going to be influenced to do what they're doing now. But that's the wrong plan, because you need to do what they did then. And we'll talk about that. So right now, at last count, we have roughly about 2.5 million subscribers on our YouTube channel. And I got to tell you, what a crazy, wild number that is, because when I started making content, when we got like 40 views in a day, I was like so happy. I was like, gosh, I can't believe people are even watching this stuff. Like, I'm a fool and I'm just doing stuff and people are tuning in. Like, what a crazy world we live in. So what I want to say is you need to start super narrow. And then over time, as your core audience builds, their needs are going to change and they're going to bring other people with them to the conversation, right? So then you can expand that circle slowly, and then more and more people will show up. The problem with doing hyper niche content is that it's going to appeal to a very small group of people. This is fantastic for community building, for your tribe, products and offers and courses, because you're hyper focused on one kind of transformation for one core audience type. Fantastic for business, not great for reach and influence. So we kind of have to understand that. So initially when I started, I was making design-oriented content for designers just like myself, who might be 5 or 10 years younger in their business experience than me. But I was teaching them design things. But then I quickly realized the design space is very crowded, because there are a lot of amateur designers out there who are teaching the same thing. They're funnier, they're more charismatic, they do stunts and gags. I'm like, that ain't me. So I quickly realized, if I can't make a dent in a space, I need to find a place where no one's playing. This is the blue ocean versus red ocean strategy, right? If you're not familiar with it, if you just move a little bit from where the market is, where there's high competition, you literally just move your boat 20 miles to another direction, you can put in the same effort but have a totally different result. So I'm like, okay, I like to teach. I like to talk about business. I understand design and aesthetics. I've produced commercials and music videos for 20 plus years. I know how to do this. What else can I do? And it was almost by accident that I found the thing that we're most known for today. And I didn't know anybody cared about this stuff. So one of my former students, he starts a business and he goes, I need help with business coaching. I'm like, cool. Well, this is how much it'll cost. Or I'll do it for free if you're willing to have this conversation in public. And being a broke ass student, he's like, I like the free option a lot. Fantastic. So he meets me at the studio 30 minutes late. By the way, Frank, I'll never forgive you for that. You ask for free advice, you show up 30 minutes late. And so I'm on camera, I'm lit, I'm ready to go. And then he's sitting in the dark somewhere because we didn't have a light on him. And we gave him a microphone. So he started asking me questions. And without any preparation, I just had a whiteboard. I started writing things down. I would break down how business works. And later on, I would start to see like an audience started to show up for this. I could not have predicted this is what people would want from me, because nobody even knows this is what I do. But it is, in fact, what people want. So I'm talking about business strategies, how to run a small creative business, and I'm focusing almost exclusively on creative people. But you know, the weird thing that happens is sales, pricing, self-worth, confidence, they're universal principles that apply to almost every industry. So slowly but surely, that core audience of creative professionals has grown to include people outside of what I would consider my core demographic. And so we just continue to evolve and serve people where they're at. And that's what I continue to do. But that's now 1.5 million subscribers into it that we continue to change. Now, you notice something. I don't know if you follow Gary Vaynerchuk. You know who he is, right? Yeah. In the very beginning, do you remember what Gary talked about a lot? A couple of themes.
I remember empathy a lot, but he still talks about that. But
Okay, like in the
I'm not going further.
beginning,
I'm not,
when he looked
wine,
different than, I mean, when he was a
wine,
young man,
but he still talks
wine,
about
he
wine.
was talking a lot about wine. So
Yeah,
he hit a certain audience, but
yeah,
then he moved into this hustle grind thing
yeah,
and
yeah,
like
yeah.
flipping things from garage, so
Yes, I
like
remember that. Yep.
swap meets, or I forget
Mm-hmm.
what they're called, right? That's what he's doing. He's like,
Yep.
look at this toy. I bought this. I flipped it. This is a card and I could sell this. So this is what he was doing. And he noticed something about his audience. There are a lot of young men there. And there's a certain vibe and energy about that. And I think ultimately he's like, is this what I want to do? So he starts to evolve so he can broaden his audience outside of young men who are trying to hustle, right? So he starts talking about kindness and empathy and taking good care of people. So of course he has to evolve too. The challenge that he has, which we all have, is when you start to broaden out your core audience, I guess your army, they start to think like, wait, what happened to the person we fell in love with? You totally changed. You changed, right? So he has to work through that, and that's totally okay. And we're all going to go through that. So there are people, I guess, fans that are also simultaneously trolling me. Like I used to remember when this channel talked about design, and they would say that. I'm like, I'm sorry, I talked about design for a hot minute. I don't want to do it anymore. And as a person who pays for my own content, I do this at my own expense. I get to decide what I want to talk about.
Mike, drop. Oh my gosh. Let me tell you something, Chris. I literally just had this conversation. I had a heated kind of a conversation the other day with somebody who was, a super fan. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I like that. Super fan. Yes.
Super fan, right? And they were so mad. They were so mad that, like, when I first started this show, it was all about careers. Okay, all about careers, very niche. How to get a job, what to do to get a job, all of that. And that was in 2018, and I would interview recruiters and hiring managers and, stuff like that, and career coaches. And it was all about getting a job. Well, you know what? To be frank with you, I got bored of that after 150 episodes of that. And you know what? Through that process, I actually became a career strategist. Like, I learned all the strategies. Like, I don't need to invite a career coach. I could do that. I could help them with that. Anyway, so I got a little bit bored of that. And I started to invite, I was like, what else do career changers need? Well, they need motivation, because they feel like in their dumps, like their confidence is low. They need somebody to motivate them, inspire them, encourage them, lift them up. So I started going after, some of the best keynote speakers in the world and some of the motivational speakers. And, then all of a sudden I got, business folks and entrepreneurs and authors, and like, it just changed and morphed. And now this show's more of a self-development podcast, right? It's how to, who can make all the difference in your wealth, health, business, career, and life. It's more than just career. And I remember literally last week, I had a conversation with a super fan who was like very pissed off that the show is not just careers anymore. And I'm like, dude, like, it is more than that. We're growing, it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. So how do you, how did you handle your little hater, I guess? And you know what you said about, I pay for the show. Like, I told him the same thing. I'm like, I pay for all of this. Like, I have to want to do it, you know? Anyway, so what else did you say to that guy?
Well, I try not to pay any one person too much attention. It's all feedback and data points for me. I try not to get too emotionally riled up by this. And at a certain point, people want you to do all kinds of things. And it's true. Marty Neumeyer writes about this in his book. It's like corporations used to own brand, but now customers own the brand. Customers tell the brand what it should do. I think there was something with Coors, and they were trying some kind of concept, or maybe it's Bud, and it didn't hit their audience. I'm like, we're not going to buy your beer anymore. And we can see that, right? So if a brand doesn't live up to its own values and promises and isn't staying true to its mission, the customers will leave. They will demand that the brand correct their mistake. So here's the thing. I mean, it's true with people too. It's like, there are people who are like, I used to like it when you did this, this, and that. And I respect that. But you know what? as the person who is trying to figure my own way out in my own life. And I do this at my own discretion because it gives me joy. When it feels like a job and I work for you, then you have to pay me a lot of money. And I'm going to promise you, most people can't afford that anyway. So I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. And I appreciate you for coming along the ride. And sometimes this is the best kind of message that I get. Chris, used to be a big fan of this show or the channel, and you did X, Y, and Z. It really pissed me off. And I swore I'm not going to come back here. And then just randomly popped up my feed again. I was just like full of like anger, and I watched it. And I have to say, I like the person you've become, and I'm back, baby.
Oh,
and I'm back.
Let's
You know,
go.
so here's the thing. It's like we go through different seasons of figuring things out, and we're okay with that. And we ask people to give us grace when we're working through the different seasons. But why is it that you or me, as a content creator, can't go through our own seasons of figuring things out? And if you're a real fan, you're in it when we're losing, you're in it when we're winning, you're in it when we're making, you're in it when we're not making. That's what it means to be a real fan. So don't come at me and say, I'm your real fan, and start making all kinds of demands at me. Well, who entitled you to have those opinions? I mean, I care, but don't I get to do what I want? You know, I'll tell you a little story here. I'm a classically or traditionally trained graphic designer. I learned how to do editorial spreads for magazines and design CD covers, if anybody remembers what they are. I designed logos and identity systems. That's what I was trained to do. And people would ask me, Chris, is design art? I'm like, no, it's not art, because artists go into a studio and they do whatever they want and they suffer the consequences because they have no client. They are their own client. So their highest goal is to reflect the world through their eyes and do it the way they want on their own timeline. You and I know, as soon as somebody pays you to do something, there's an obligation and a responsibility that you need to fulfill. And graphic designers can be artistic, but they're not artists in the way that artists are artists, right? Okay. So for a long time, I needed to set the record straight. I am not an artist. I'm a designer. I solve people's problems. Cool. And then I make YouTube videos. And then people are like, are you an artist? And I say to them, under my own definition, hell yes, I'm an artist. I make these things on my own schedule. No one tells me what to do. I just make whatever I want to make at whatever cadence I want to make it. And I suffer the consequences. I'm foregoing high-paying corporate client work so I get to do this. Just so happens that my studio is the web, it's YouTube. And my canvas are the pixels that are being beamed to your eyes right now. And the strokes are the words that I choose to say and the tone of voice that I come at you. And sometimes the humor or the acerbic comments that I make. That is my art. And so when you become a fan of my art, then you have to say, let the artist do what they want, because otherwise it's a commercial endeavor and I'm not an artist anymore. Now, I'm not trying to equate what I'm doing with people who like sit there and sculpt and paint, but it is a form of art. It's a form of my own self-expression.
That's good. That is so good. So it's kind of like, yo, if, like, if you want to pay me, right?
Yeah.
Then we could definitely talk about making some changes to this show, right?
You'll do career development. It has to have a couple of zeros on that.
Yeah.
But you'll do career development.
Yeah. Yeah, we could talk about it, right? I remember in the conversation, I had Chris Gronkowski on the show, former Cowboy, brother of Rob Gronkowski, the Super Bowl champ, and all of that. Anyway, we had him on the show, and the fan was like, what did that have to do with careers? And I'm like, nothing. Like, I wanted to have Chris Gronkowski on the show. I'm a Cowboy fan. He's former Cowboy. Anyways, not a lot. It was just something I wanted to do, and I pay for the studio and I pay for the production, and it's something that I love to do. So, yeah. So I love what you're saying. Like, there's the difference. I love how you explain the difference between an artist and a designer. A designer's getting paid to solve the problems and to create a certain product at the end of the day for the consumer. And your artist is, they're doing it for themselves,
Yeah.
But talk to me about, okay.
Can I give you one more example just
go for it.
to drive this point home?
Sure.
In case people are like, art design, oh, that's so esoteric. I don't know what the heck you guys are talking about. I'll say it this way. Let's say you're an architect. The client hires you. You get to put as much artistry into it, but if you build them or design them a home that they don't like, you're not going to have many clients and you might have a lawsuit on your hands. But some architects say, I have a vision for a house that I want to build, and they become developers. They invest their own money, put a lot at risk, have a vision for the kind of home that they want to build for a very specific type of person. And if they make the right decisions, they make a lot of money. If they make the wrong decisions, they lose a lot of money and they don't get to play again. So there's the same problem again. The architect works for money. The developer wants to shape the world in a very specific way. And if they do a good job, then they make a lot of money. So you're a writer and you write for a magazine. They pay you and you're a freelance writer. If they don't like it, they want to change it, so be it. But if you're a poet, if you write your own screenplays and you don't care about the financial consequences, you're an artist again. So as many parallels as I can make, think about where you are and have a sober conversation with yourself. Don't live in this kind of idyllic world where you romanticize everything. That's all. Back to your question.
No, that's so good. I love how you, the different analogies to help us picture it, right? To see it, because it totally makes sense. Back to your YouTube channel, okay? Backstage, you were talking about a couple of updates, some new things going on with your channel. Tell me about that.
Yes. So with every social platform, when they introduce new tech or new engagement strategies, you should try to use them, because what they need is to see if this is a viable benefit or feature, like if people really like it. So they'll tend to promote things a little bit more. So when we got started in 2014, we're relatively late in the YouTube game, but still earlier than a lot of folks. So we're kind of in that weird sweet spot, right? But we were at the beginning of them doing shorts. I remember a friend of mine, Brian Elliott, he called me and we were chatting about YouTube. He goes, Chris, you really do shorts. I'm like, what's that? They're just like 1 minute clips and do X, Y, and Z and use this hashtag. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I don't even know what it is, but let's go. I tell my team, let's go do this. And we're dropping videos, but it doesn't move the needle for us at all. I'm like, is this a waste of time? This is literally a conversation we had. Jonah's like, Chris, do you still want us to do this? Because it does take time to do these shorts. I'm like, yeah, let's try it for a couple more weeks and we'll go back to doing what we're doing. Just so happens that one of our videos started to go viral. I'd never witnessed anything like this on my channel before. And I was like, wait, what is going on? And I was confused because I'm like, is this the same video that I was telling a friend about that got 40,000 views? Because this one has 127,000. And I'm like, I'm going to see now, guys. There must be two videos that are taken off. No, it was one video, but it was moving so fast that the number was throwing me off. And so this one short now has over 40 million views. And it brought the whole category of shorts brought us 1 million new subscribers in less than 6 months, which had taken us almost like 7 years to get to, right? So this is wild. So right now, YouTube is trying its best to help creators monetize. So they've created educational channels. This is very important if you're a course creator. But the thing that I'm really excited about is they've introduced memberships. Now, prior to this, you needed to use third-party platforms like Patreon and others, or GoFundMe or something like that, to have people support your art. Okay, so this is the art part. So I'm like, oh, we should try this. So it's called memberships, and we want to be able to do this. And you can set different membership tiers. And so we have an internal meeting. Should we try this? And I talked to friends like, Chris, of all the people I know on YouTube, you most definitely need to do this because all you've done is given us great, valuable content. I'm like, I've been doing this for 10 years, 1,300 plus videos. And I used to say to people, and I would irritate some folks, our free content is better than their paid content. And people would drop these comments like, I feel like I need to be arrested because I've stolen high value content. I said, it's not stolen because we gave it to you for free. So we're thinking 10 years into the game, for those people that have received value, who've got some kind of transformation Is it worth it to you to support us? And if it gives you joy to do that, we'd love to have you support us on our YouTube channel. We have 2 tiers. $1 gets you a little badge. That's it. Just says, I'm supporting you. $1 a month. That's it. We hope that some of the people will step up to the patron level, which is $15 a month. And that gives you access to unreleased videos, unlisted videos, and some deeper cuts on things, BTS stuff that I don't know where to put because it's so weird and esoteric. But if you're a super fan, you might like it.
I love that. I love that. And you're also, right, you're supporting, you're supporting your creator, right? The person that, you enjoy, right? If you're a fan, you're supporting their channel and helping them, and that those funds help you to then, continue the thing, right? Keep it going. So I love that. That's super cool. I didn't know YouTube was doing that. I've heard of other things, but I didn't know YouTube was doing that.
Yeah. And I just want to say this. I hate marketing, and people call me marketing guru or brand building and all this kind of stuff. All I want to do, getting back to one of your earlier questions, tell me about the billion mission. All I want to do is teach all day long, Trevor. I want to have a team where I roll in and I say, hey, what's hot right now? What are people struggling with? How do we help and serve people? And they're like, how about this, and that? I'm like, well, that one feels good to me. Let's do that one. Cameras are rolling, a crowd of 30 people in there, and we film and we just release the videos, and hopefully it helps someone somewhere in the internet, right? I want to be able to do that all day long. But the business model doesn't support that because the AdSense revenue is so small, it doesn't even pay for what it is we're trying to do. And I want to work at scale. You can't get to 1 billion people or lives impacted if you don't think and operate at scale. And I want to surround myself with the best editors, motion graphic artists, teachers, AI specialists, writers, researchers, all the things that you have to do, people to help curate guests and to hold space, and technicians and lighting people. I want that so that we can teach at the highest level. And nothing would make me happier if we had to just completely stop running webinars. We don't run ads. We don't jam your inbox with like multi-sequence email, tripwire, blah, 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 all that marketing stuff, right? Now I have to do it. I need to do it because I got to pay a team. But wouldn't it be great if enough people that got value from the channel just stepped up and helped? Then we don't need to do that anymore. So I'm saying this because sometimes I get super excited and the tone is wrong. Do it if it gives you joy. If not, I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you subscribing, tuning in. That's it. I'll continue to make content for free for people forever.
That's so good. I love that. And you're absolutely right. I wish I didn't have to do all of the different marketing tactics and things like that, but in today's day and age, you're right. It's necessary in a lot of times that you have to do these types of things, but wish you didn't have to, but hey, so I appreciate that. I also have another question for you. I think I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyways. I recently, I was posting everything, all of my content, I was posting natively to all of the platforms. And then I was introduced to a social media management tool called Vista Social, and looked really cool, had a lot of really nice features, and I was like, man, this is pretty sweet. So I've been testing it, and I did notice that my engagement has dropped, not necessarily on YouTube, which is interesting, but the other social channels it did. So do you and your team, do you post all natively to these channels, or do you use any social media tools, management tools for scheduling? Because man, I will tell you, I love how easy it is to just load that thing up and they just go out. But if the reach is lower because the platforms don't like it, then it's like it's a catch-22, man. What are your thoughts?
I have some thoughts on this. I'm going to reference Layla Hormozi. I had her on her podcast one time, and she's giving business advice, right? And she goes, a lot of people make this mistake. They're so concerned about scaling, they haven't even figured out their business model yet, right? It doesn't make sense to hire 100 people and get a 100,000 square foot warehouse and $100,000 a month overhead when you don't even have a business just yet. So she said, focus on the operations, the systems, and hire really good people. Start there. And if you could do that, then you can scale, ramp up, because you're building on something that you know works. So when it comes to the content game, a lot of people want to get into the automation and that scale and distribution that we all love, but you haven't figured out the content game yet. You haven't figured out how to say things that resonate with an audience. You haven't figured out how to take complex ideas, shrink them down to make them super digestible and highly actionable. You haven't figured out your tone of voice or your perspective or lens that you want to tell these stories in. You have to work on your craft. So I don't love these tools that allow you to push one piece of crappy content across all platforms. If you do that consistently enough, when you're ready and when you're good, people are like, I don't want to hear from you. I've seen enough of your garbage across channels and I just don't. I'm not going to tune in for that, right? Unit expression, you get one chance to make a first impression and you've made many bad first impressions. So I'm going to put it out there. For the vast majority of my content creation, I use no schedulers. I post natively, and I'll tell you why. Is I'm responding and reacting to what's going on. Like, who loves a conversation with a stranger when all they do is talk about themselves and don't even care about your input? You've been in conversations like this before. 30 minutes in, the person has not even asked you a question. So you're thinking in your mind, it's all about you. It's the Chris show, isn't it? And I don't want to do that. So I write a piece of content, and depending on the conversations that happen after, I'm like, oh, I need to do a follow-up piece because I wasn't clear on that first one, or we haven't put this sucker to bed yet, and I need to do that. So it feels conversational, responsive to what's going on, and I like that a lot. Now, we do try to hit certain times of days and days of the week that we're posting content, but my team uses the native tools to schedule. I suspect, Trevor, that using these schedulers has not impacted YouTube for you because YouTube, despite what everybody thinks, it's not a social media channel. It's a really powerful search engine with a library of content, right? It's not like YouTube has a way for you to like, hey, Johnny and Mary, you should check out this video. It happens off platform on real social platforms. That's how people share and engage, or on LinkedIn or on X. That's how that works. So it's a repository for content driven by search. So the way that you improve your YouTube numbers is to come up with, first of all, great content, but let's put that aside. A super interesting title that's search friendly, that is going to help you be found and discovered by new people. And your thumbnail game is so good that the combination of the title and the thumbnail make it irresistible for people to click on. We're constantly working in the background testing thumbnails to see if we can get 0.2% better click-through rate. So if we can be at 5% click-through rate, which is not very good relative to Mr. Beast, it's great for us, right? So that's what we're trying to do. Now, I will say I have used schedulers before, and they do make posting very convenient, but I also find that when I use them, I'm not engaging with them as much. So it's like a whole idea of like dropping content and just leaving the party. It doesn't make sense, right? I want to have a conversation with people.
Yeah. Posting ghosts. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
On the YouTube front, you were talking about the thumbnail, making the engaging thumbnail.
Yes.
So you can get more clicks. Do you think that like you don't need a thumbnail for shorts though, right? There's no.
No, not really.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I didn't.
Yeah.
Think so.
For aesthetic reasons, you might, but it doesn't really help.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. But yeah, for long form, right? Getting some engaging thumbnails. Now, any thoughts to, like with my channel, my thumbnails all look similar. So when you go to the channel, that it's a very branded channel, right? Everything looks the same.
Yeah.
But is that good? Is that bad? I mean, obviously, right? I mean, you're saying probably,
I have a perspective on this.
Probably not good. Yeah, I want to hear your perspective on that.
Okay. What is your number one goal for creating content on YouTube?
My number one goal, probably just to get as many eyeballs as possible.
Like growth, reach.
Growth.
Impact, that kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So in order to grow and increase your reach, you have to reach new people. People haven't seen your content.
Right.
So oftentimes, I don't know how many times you've done this, but when I see a good piece of content, I check them out. And then, oh my God, that's really good. And then I click on their channel. Then I see a wall of same. I'm like, oh, whew, that's overwhelming. What people tell me before when we would make small changes to our thumbnails, they get confused. Did I watch this already? Oh no, I haven't watched this. Oh shoot. And what you don't want to do is to get into factory mode and you're just stamping out thumbnails because it's convenient.
Mm.
Your face, guest face, title in bold, and that's kind of it,
That's me.
right? That's a lot of people. And you know who's guilty of this? It's designers putting the importance of consistency and brand over the metric that matters to you, which is growth and reach. Now, I know this. For the type of content, a certain thumbnail that feels different from the channel will work better because it resonates with the piece of content. So it's tailored for that piece of content. And the only thing that we use that make it consistent with our channel is there has to be an aesthetic vibe. And we have 2 typefaces that we use. Please don't use different typefaces so it doesn't look like a zoo over there. You know, here's the crazy thing. I was preparing for a keynote a couple days ago, and I was going through all our old thumbnails. I'm like, damn, we've made a lot of content, first of all. But the variety of thumbnails, I think would be really interesting to see. Most of them are designed by me. A handful of them are designed by my team. So it'd be really cool. I think we're going to do a montage where we're just going to cycle through like the different thumbnails because people might not even be aware what 1,300 thumbnails look like, right? Just to see them and the evolution of them. And some people are like, well, your channel's all over the place. I'm okay with that. Because if that thumbnail helps more people to watch that video, then I'm a little bit closer to my billion goal. That's it.
I agree with that. So I need some better design work because I don't have the time myself to be behind Canva. You know what I'm saying? Trying to like make all this stuff, right? And I've got a team, but you're right. The team just stamps out the same look, puts your face on it, puts my face on it, puts a title on it, calls it a day, right? Well, the title will depend on, the guest and the episode that we're doing. So what we use is, obviously we're using AI to help us to generate some of that research on the guest because there was a day and age where I used to do that manually and it would take me forever to do research on a guest. But now, AI will cut back on that. And so it'll also create show notes, it'll create a description, it'll create a title, titles, all of that stuff. And so I can have all of that ahead of the episode. And so that's how we'll title the thumbnail is using AI to create some titles based off of who we're interviewing and what the episode's going to be about. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, AI is not good or bad. It's the instructions of which you give it. So I've learned a lot from my buddy Dave, who talks a lot about AI. And if there's a model that you train it on to say like, these are really good titles and I need it to be in this tone of voice because that's my voice with this certain attitude or this kind of emotional resonance, then the output it gives you is going to be more for you versus like out of the box. So AI by default knows everything. And if you can imagine trying to talk to like 100,000 experts at the same time and say, hey, write me something. How could they agree on anything? So what happens is those experts then come up with a really generic title or piece of design. What you need to do is say, expert number 44, I want to talk to you because I think for this job, you're the most aligned with what I want. And so you kind of have to tell it like, forget all the other voices, focus on this voice. And that's why the prompt of act or behave like this person or this mindset or with this goal, then they can filter out the different robots that are not going to help you. And so we use a very specific prompt to help us generate really great titles. And then from that, we pick and then use our human intelligence and curate, like maybe it's a combination of these two, this needs to be truncated, and then we can say, based on that video that you just analyzed, what would be a compelling thumbnail based on these parameters and these things? And then it will suggest, try this. Oftentimes, it will suggest things I'm not even thinking about, which spark an idea. And then, of course, all of this takes time and energy. But if you want people to show up, you should do that. Now, I recently talked to Andrew and Pete over at Atomic. They're in the UK. And they have this idea they call the big domino. And the big domino is just their way of labeling something. And if you think about Alexander the Great, there's this famous story about him chopping the Gordian knot, right? I forget where it was from, but they're like, whoever can untie this knot will rule us, and we will submit to our will to this person. So many people come in, they try to untie the knot, they can't. Alexander the Great walks in, he looks at it, he takes out his sword and just chops it, and it's like, done. And they're his people now. And so we try to think about, if you want one of your videos to reach a lot of people and grow and bring you in new followers and new audience, I think you want to sit there and think about giving it the best shot of reaching an audience as possible. And that can't be done at scale. It's not something you put a rubber stamp on and just hit and you're done with. And I will tell you this, there have been videos that are sleepers. They don't do anything. They're at about 2.5 click-through rate, which is terrible for us. And I'll sit there, I'm like, is this a bad piece of content? And I swear to you, change the title, change the thumbnail. Now it's at 4.2, 4.5, 4.7. All of a sudden, that curve of like it dying on the vine starts to literally move up. And sometimes it goes to like hockey stick mode. Same video. This is why this is so critical.
Okay, so I love this conversation because I've got thousands of videos on my channel, and yeah, I need to go back and like, make some tweaks. Do you ever recommend just completely just getting rid of something? Like, is there like, does content drag your channel down if it's just really garbage, like old, like way back in the day? I know I got some garbage on there, right? So does any of that stuff, should I just delete it, get it off of there?
I think that the algorithm won't even show it. The likelihood that someone will find it is pretty low. Now, if you put out content that you're not proud of, that doesn't live up to your standards, I would say get rid of it for obvious reasons. There are videos where I kind of like lose my cool and I say things that I shouldn't. And I don't want that version of me out there. I'm not proud of those moments. Like, I'm fighting with my team on camera. I'm not being a very nice person. I'm being a jerk, if I'm being honest with you. And so we're like, whenever I bump into one of those videos, I'm like, I just turn it off. I don't want that out there. It's not that I'm worried about it underperforming, okay? But there's lots of videos that are out there. I just leave them there. And every once in a while, something happens as part of like the cultural shift, and someone's actively looking for this video. If you title it properly with a good thumbnail, it just might spike. So I wouldn't do that. And it's like, if you think about it more from this perspective, like, these are a frozen moment in time of which you were thinking, and don't worry too much about that, because we all evolve, we change. And that's a beautiful thing about evolution.
Yeah, and that's the way I was looking at it too, is that it's like a time capsule, the entire, channel. So you can go back and look at that first episode, right, where you're like, oh God, that sucked. But to me, I love watching that episode. It's like, this is gold. It's a time machine, right? And so I love that. And I was talking with Rich Cardona the other day about, podcasting, because they have now adopted the RSS feeds over on your channel. And, whether or not that's a good idea or a bad idea. I just didn't know if if having bad content on the channel ultimately drags down like your average views or whatever, that, I guess YouTube is a different animal that I don't really know personally. So you're definitely an expert. So is there it has its own algorithm, right? Like, if you constantly post garbage on there, or does each individual video have its own like algorithm?
I can't say this on authority, but I believe every video has to fight for its audience. It doesn't matter if you have 1 subscriber or 10 million subscribers. What happens is, I think YouTube shows your video to 10% of your audience. This is where it can hurt you. So if you drop a stinker, it's going to show it to 10% of your audience. They might just be reminded that, oh, why am I following this guy? This is terrible. I'm going to unsubscribe. So I think your brand is how you show up consistently over time. So if you're producing content that's not good, doesn't meet your standards, I would not publish it, because having more crap out there is not good for anybody, right? So I would just get rid of those.
Quality over quality over quantity. right? And if you're training your audience, again, essentially what you're saying is you're training your audience that you suck. You're always putting crap out there. The next time you put a banger, it could be a banger, and they're like you've already trained them that you suck, right? It's kind of like, I think about it like this in a way. Okay, maybe if as an analogy, you do a lot of analogies. So in email marketing, right? If you train your audience like your emails are garbage and they're not valuable to your whoever you're sending them to, if they're always constantly deleting them, right? They're just delete, 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 right? They may not unsubscribe, but they're just deleting it every time it comes in their inbox. You may actually present them with something of value, but you've already trained them. They're like delete, right? Like I do that sometimes. I'm like, I just right. So, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And Chris, I could seriously talk to you all day long, but I know you're a super busy man. So I got a couple more questions here, and then I'm going to let you get back to your mission of 1 billion people. Okay. A couple more questions I have for you. So in your journey, right, of reaching 1 billion, what do you think is more important? What you know, the knowledge, the skills, obviously as a teacher, right? Then the things that you know, or who you know, the relationships, the network, the people. What do you think is more valuable? What you know or who you know?
I know the name of the podcast.
Yeah. Forget
Or
the name of the podcast. Just
right. I want to answer this.
Yeah.
I want to answer this in a very real way.
Yes.
I was asked this recently, and my thought on this is it's hard for me to separate the two because the quality of the people you get to know depends on what you know. Okay. So I'm invited into rooms. You want to drop the mic?
Yeah, that's good, man. That's good. Okay. All right.
Go. So if you want to be in that room when they're just killers, just crushing it all over the place, why would they put you in that room? You're going to lower the IQ of the room. You're going to lower the income of that room by the law of averages, right? Yeah. And so I find it real interesting these days, and I kind of marvel and just delighted that I'm in rooms with people that are so successful. I'm like the most broke person there. I'm like, how did I get here? Well, some person in that room decided I was a worthy person in addition to the conversation at the dinner table, and here I am. And I'm not going to sell myself short. I know how to do certain things better than most people, but these people have different things to offer. So in my inbox on Instagram, on LinkedIn, mostly on Instagram, are young people from other countries constantly saying, Chris, mentor me, take me on, give me work, give me an opportunity. I'm like, you're one of 1,000 people today. What do you know? What can you do for me right now? Because if you help me with something, I will not only give you work, but I'll promote you to a lot of people. But what do they want? They want the Uncle Chris treatment. Like, we ain't family. And even for family, I don't even do this. So why, what am I doing here? I don't know you, right? People are literally sending me messages. I'm sure it's a scam. Oh, I just need $400 for a laptop. I know I can make an impact on the world. Like, come on. I don't know you because you don't have anything to offer just yet. And I know this is going to sound really weird. And I want to be clear about this. I help people that don't have anything to offer me all day long. That's what I do. So I want to be sure that people are like, whoa. The messaging here, Chris, the messaging here. It's because when people are coming at me saying, give me, I don't want to surround myself with those types of people. I want to be able to give the way I want to give, not because someone's barking up a tree and saying this. So I think if you were to read someone's book, actually don't read their book, read all of their books. Don't read it one time, read it 5 times. So now you know something. So when you get to meet this person, you're going to be able to have a conversation with them in a way that separates you from the people who are just trying to get by in their good looks and charm.
That is such a great answer, and I've never thought about it that way. But I mean, it's even how me and you are connected here today, right? I mean, if I would have just reached out, hey, whatever, but it was because of what I know, which is the podcasting, doing podcasting is what I know and the skills that I've developed over the last 6.5 years, plus my relationship capital with, Rich Cardona, Fanny Dunnigan, some mutual connections that we have, that we were able to facilitate an introduction. But if it wasn't for the what I know, they would not feel comfortable making that introduction, right? It was a combination of the two things that got the two of us here today. So I love that answer. What a phenomenal answer. One last question. All right. One last question here. Now that you've been on the Who You Know show, you know what we're all about. Okay. Who do you know that you think would be a good fit for this show, that you think that would be another legend that we could bring here and shine a light on them?
You put me on the spot here. I
want to show,
Yeah, I want to put some thought into this. I don't want to send you some random, because like you said, if Rich or Fanny recommend you and I go away thinking this is stupid, why would I do this? That lowers their ability to have any kind of impact or influence on me. I'm like, Fanny and Rich, don't ever do that again. And then now they feel embarrassed. And so I think a lot of the recommendations needs to be something that's thoughtful and considerate and intentional versus like, oh, Bob should be here. I don't know, to be honest. I need to think about it.
Great. No, I appreciate that, because you're absolutely right. A referral recommendation, if gone sideways, it's actually one of the reasons why a lot of people don't give referrals and recommendations, is because they got burnt, meaning they introduced somebody sometime and they got embarrassed, right? And then you're absolutely right. Then they're like, I'm not doing that anymore. They don't want that feeling again. So absolutely, totally understand that. When you think of somebody that you think would be a good fit for this show, man, holla at your boy. I would appreciate that. What's the best place? You've got all these big channels. What's the best? Where do you want the audience to connect with? Where, if they wanted to reach out, what would be the best place?
Probably Instagram, because it's kind of unfiltered, that almost anybody can send me a message. I leave it open, which has its ups and downs, right? So if you go look me up at the Chris Doe, and Doe spelled D-O, there's only one account. If you find a weird misspelling, it's not me. They're out there to get your money. It's a Nigerian scam. I'm just joking. I don't know what it is, but it ain't good. Let me just tell you, there's some crypto thing going on probably. I don't ask for your money in the DMs, not like that. Not without your permission, not without giving value to you first. So on Instagram at the Chris Doe, if we're connected on LinkedIn, I know we can message each other without it costing you an in-mail credit. So you can also reach me on LinkedIn.
Well, you've got a connection request from me pending, sitting in your email there, or your network there. So just connect with me. I'd love that. Let's give some quick shout outs over here before we drop off here. We've got Archada. We've got Kayla. Good to see you. Rich Cardona, of course, my man in the house. Thank you for the introduction, getting things put together. Super grateful for you. Rose in the house. Good to see you. Louise, I see you. I see Nokaleta. Good to see you. Dong Jaing. Good to see you. Guys, we appreciate you tuning in to the Who You Know show today. That's the show. It's all about who you know. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Who You Know Show podcast. My name is Trevor Houston, and if you've enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing wherever you listen and leave us a positive review to help us keep the mics on in the studio. Until next week, that's the show. It's all about who you know.